This Saturday edition of Pucks Across Borders on Sports Addict Live and Total Apex Sports, brought to you by the one and only First Round Collectibles. Right now with our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off whatever sports card you want in the whole First Round Collectibles store. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off dozens and dozens and dozens of cards. With our promo code Sports Addict, not only do you get 10% off of regular price items, but sales items as well. Pick your sport: hockey, football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, boxing. They have it all. So head over to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Use our promo code Sports Addict for 10% off sales and regular price items. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. And roundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins. Can't relax. Original. I am not the same as these cats. I sting them if they never ever
And welcome to Pucks Across Borders on Sports Addict Live and Total Apex Sports, brought to you by First Round Collectibles. 2 games in the NHL last night. We will touch on it all. Panthers lay another beatdown on the Bruins to go up 2-1 in their series. And the Edmonton Oilers squeak out an overtime victory against the Vancouver Canucks. 2 games tonight. Andre's New York Rangers going for the sweep, and the Dallas Stars are in Denver for game 3 of their series. Full disclosure, before we get into all of it, a little unprofessional look behind the curtain. Was that whole intro choppy for you guys? Am I here? Am I okay? My Wi-Fi and computer just had an absolute spaz attack in that intro, so I have no idea. I could be talking to myself right now. I have no idea.
We can hear you. Well, I can at least. I don't know. Like you're coming in clear on my end.
Perfect. That's good enough for me. I was like halfway through my read and nothing on my screen was moving. I'm like, I have no idea if this is even registering. But hey, that's what happens sometimes with my computer. It just decides to just explode. But before we get into everything that I just mentioned, I am Mark Sauter. It is good to be here as always. And right next to me at the top of your screen, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics. You read his gambling picks on Winners and Whiners. You read him on the Total Apex Sports website talking about the NHL and much more. And you see him all over Total Apex Sports, talking football, basketball, baseball. He talks about it all. Andre, how are we feeling on a Saturday afternoon, bro?
Feeling pretty good. Can't complain. Had a pretty nice Friday. Ready for the Rangers, even though for some reason I feel like you're going to be a bigger Rangers fan than me tonight, but we can that later.
Yeah, maybe. It's quite possible. You absolutely know the read where I'm going with this. But once again, before we get into it, at the bottom of your screen, once again, my computer is just like, I have no idea what's going on right now, but it's fine. We're live. We're rolling through. John, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics. How you feeling on a Saturday afternoon, man?
Well, first off, we'll do it live. F it in the words of Bill O'Reilly.
That's right. That's right.
Sorry, I love that clip. I quote it quite often back home. I'm doing pretty good, man. In my neck of the woods, what the weather's a lot much better than it was yesterday. Hopefully the same for you guys. Last night had some interesting hockey games for sure. Tonight, I'm mainly interested to see if one or two teams really take control of their series here or close it out in the Rangers' case.
I think that series is over, but we'll get into it. All right, last night, let's go around the table. Last night, the Florida Panthers, the opening game of the doubleheader. The Florida Panthers were in Boston for game number 3. Series tied 1-1. Panthers win 6-2. Jeremy Swayman gets pulled for the second straight game. And it's a weird thing, and we'll talk about it. I don't feel like either game he got pulled, it was even his fault. Like, this Boston team has barely showed up, especially for the first 2 periods of both games. But let's get into it. Andre, let's start with you, man. What did you see in that game last night between the Panthers and the Bruins?
The Panthers, 1, are the better team. 2, they want it more. And now that it's personal, I feel like it's really showing. Game 1 happened, done, over with. I think that was Boston's fluke performance, and we're seeing the real team show up now. I don't, like you, I can't really blame Swayman for anything happening in front of him.
No.
It's just sometimes you're in no man's land, and they might switch to Allmark, try to spark the team, do something new, but it's probably going to end the same exact way. They're just getting outskated, plain and simple. We all figured this would happen to the Bruins. Game 1 shocked us, to say the least. And the Panthers have very quickly corrected course. 6 goals in consecutive games. They're shutting down the Bruins offense. The Bruins offense has been shutting itself down this postseason, but the Panthers are keeping them in check again. We said, I think 2 of us said Panthers in 5. And it's still very much on the table, and I think it's still very likely. They're clearly dominant, and the Bruins just very clearly aren't real cup contenders, even if they made it this far.
Well, and I think John had this actually spot on in game number 1, where he expected the Panthers to be a little rusty, and the game 7 from the Bruins to kind of blend into the series. And I disagreed heavily, which I tend to do with John. But he was absolutely right, because since then the Bruins have been a no-show, and it's been really, really interesting to watch. And I gotta say, I try my best to be objective. I am a Leaf fan, but I am a hockey observer, an NHL analyst. And quite frankly, this makes me very happy. So I'm sorry. I'm trying to put away my feelings, but it just does. Like, even for TotalApexSports.com, I'm covering this series, and it's hard for me not to just write in my articles, Boston sucks. And that's my whole article. Like, it's really difficult to not do that. But I'm doing my best. Nothing but professionalism on this show. We all know that. John, what did you see in that game last night?
Surprised me that the Bruins no-showed, if I'm keeping it real. I did think they would win that game last night, just because I thought being back in TD Garden would give them a little momentum boost. But clearly Florida showed up for the second straight game. And side note, can we get a close game in this series? No. I know we've gotten some fights to keep us distracted, entertaining ones at that, but let's not skip past the headline here. We haven't had a game that was closer than a 4-goal deficit this entire series. 5-1, 6-1. I think last night was 6-2. So, this hasn't exactly been a competitive series, yet interesting at the same time. Swayman, starting to get concerned about him. This is twice in a row now he's looked human. And last night, to add insult to injury, they pulled him after 4 goals for an empty net situation. Florida scored the 5th goal in an empty net, but they brought Swayman back in after that, and he gave up another goal. Like that's a bit alarming to give up a goal after an empty net goal. I'm starting to think Swayman might not start next game. I think they're going to give Olmark a chance just because Boston looks so terrible the last two games. And I don't think this is all Swayman. Before we, I don't think this is all Swayman. To be fair, he hasn't looked good the last two games, but I think the entire team just hasn't looked good. And you guys are right. Florida's like outclassing them. I think this series is over in the sense that Boston's not going to win it, but I never really did feel like they'd win it. I think it's more what Mark said. I thought maybe Florida's rust would let Boston steal a game early, and last year's feelings may give Boston an extra boost to extend the series, but I still feel the same way despite these last two games. I still think this is going to go about 6 games. I'm not quite ready to say Florida's going to just win the next 4 after losing badly in the first. But I think they'll find a way to win this series at some point. That I'll agree with you guys on. Florida does look like a complete team, and it's hard to argue that they have their what together now after these last 2 games. I just don't think they're the team that. It doesn't look like they're the team that's going to have these critical errors Boston can normally take advantage of against inferior opponents. I don't know. That's the sense I'm getting, at least.
Well, and so listen, John, I never want to question your journalistic integrity because you are a man of integrity. We all know that. I do believe, and I'm just double checking so that I can be a man of integrity as well. But I do believe that Swayman. Oh, you're right.
That was just my prediction. I wasn't trying to state that as
No.
fact.
I thought that they brought Allmark in last night, but I was wrong. Or at least he didn't register any shots.
Oh, you mean for like the 6th goal?
Yeah, I thought that they brought Allmark in, but I was completely wrong, which means that my article was wrong too, but that's fine. We're moving on. So this is the thing. With this Boston team, this has happened in the first round went 7 games. This round has gone 3 games. That is a total of 10 games. And this has happened for 8 of the 10 games where Boston did not show up on time. They did not play a complete 60-minute hockey game. And against the Florida Panthers, it's not going to work. I personally do not think that Jeremy Swayman has been that bad in this series. And if you look at a lot of these scoring attempts, Florida is getting a lot of really, really good looks. And with the way that the Panthers come at you, Swayman can only do so much. Like, 4 of those goals last night were power play goals. Now, yes, one was the 6th goal at the end of the game. Fair enough. But when you're just constantly on the penalty kill, the one thing Florida's doing that the Leafs did not expose, they're scoring on the power play. Like, in that first round, like, the Leafs got a ton of power play opportunities, and it never bit Boston. Well, it's biting Boston now. And when you have 8 shots in the first 2 periods of a hockey game, now they got 9 shots in the 3rd period, made the game 4-2, made it a little bit interesting for about 5 minutes or so. But when you come out flat against this Florida team, they're going to destroy you. And that's what we've been seeing. I said this after game 2 that you don't have to drag Florida into the fight. They'll go in willingly. And with Sam Bennett out, or back rather, through a massive hit on Marchand, where you can talk about, was it dirty, was it not dirty? That discussion's there. But the bottom line is Marchand didn't play in the 3rd period, and he did not practice today. So we don't know, like, that guy's a competitor. If he can play, he'll play, but we don't know what that looks like for them. I just think they're outmatched, man. I think they're outmatched. I don't think it's even close. And I think that this series, can Boston win a game? Potentially. But I think whoever won the Boston-Toronto series, this is what was going to happen. I think it was kind of inevitable, and we're watching it play out before our eyes. And I don't really care who's in net. Personally, I'd go back with Swayman. However, I do understand the rationale behind starting Allmark, where it's like you need some. Yeah, exactly. You need some sort of something. And what else do you do? You know what I mean? But without Marchand, like, who else do they have? Like, DeBrusk is like the only guy really doing much of anything. Pasternak, he got 3 shots last night. Yeah, I got an assist, but even then, man, like, Florida's just bigger. They're stronger. They're faster. And one thing I really like about Florida that I didn't really think about until watching the game last night, what team trusts their power or their penalty kill so much that they don't mind taking penalties? Like, if they take penalties just to prove a point, they're fine with it. Like, they don't care. You know what I mean? Like, they're just the ultimate bullies. They don't care. And I don't see Boston winning another game. They might, but to me, for all intents and purposes, this series is over. And I know it's only 2-1. It feels like it's 3-1 is what it feels like when you're watching that game. But for me, for all intents and purposes, this series is over.
It feels like Carolina when they were down 2-0 to the Rangers. I think that's why I'm mainly thinking of Ullmark right now, because it just feels like if this is the time, if there's a time they're gonna make a move to try to get a spark to save this series, next game's probably it. Especially with that being the home game and then having to go back to Carolina in Game 5. That's why I'm getting the feeling Swayman might not start. But you're right. This does feel like a 2-game deficit rather than 2-1.
Yeah, it absolutely does. All right, moving on to the late game, Edmonton and Vancouver. Edmonton, they go into the third period down 3-2. What we thought was going to happen happened with regards to Connor McDavid. 5 shots. He got a goal, 4 points in total. Draisaitl, is he hurt? Is he not hurt? I don't know, but he got 4 points and he's doing his thing. I got some thoughts on this game that kind of are maybe not what you would think, but I'll save it for a minute. John, what did you see in that game last night?
Full disclosure, I fell asleep like in the third period of that game, being it's so late. But I do know how it played out, and I did see the highlights of then on. From the time I was paying attention, at least. First of all, big win for Edmonton. I think they needed that game just to give themselves a spark. Second of all, betting wise, I think Mark hit the nail on the head yesterday when regarding the total. It's like over or bust, and that pretty much proved to be the case, despite scaring us in the third period a bit. I mean, there were 5 goals at the end of the second period, and they still barely covered that over. I think Skinner somewhat redeemed himself, a little bit at least. At least he didn't give up 3 leaky goals in a 5-minute stretch. I still don't think he was great, but at least Edmonton got something reliable out of him. Vancouver, I felt like in the first half of the game, through the first 2 periods, the lob was really good. But I think the main takeaway I have is that the star players for Edmonton stepped up. And again, Mark made our listeners some money last night with the McDavid call, and he ended up getting a goal in the third period last night. So he did. And before that, he had multiple assists for the earlier goals. So I felt like he had a big night, big bounce back night, and this was despite Vancouver trying to keep him off the puck in the first period at minimum. So, and Draisaitl had a goal of his own too. So much for him being beaten up. I think the main point I'm trying to make here is that I think the guys that needed to step up for Edmonton did exactly that. And those guys are going to be the ones that make or break this series for Vancouver. And defensively, I think Vancouver is going to have a large focus on stopping the star players for Edmonton and make someone else beat them, which is something I think they did very well in game one, for the record. But I think it's pretty clear after game two that they're going to have to do that for the entire series. And even when Edmonton's not quite on the money, they're still good for at least 3 goals a game. So this should be a high-scoring series going forward. I do think Vancouver has a lot more toughness in them than I originally gave them credit for. So I think if they could just hang on and survive, take one in Edmonton, maybe they could wait it out until like Demko comes back and they even they have perhaps more room to breathe. But this could be the makings of a long series. I don't know. I'm starting to get that feeling now.
What about you, Andre? What did you see in that game last night?
I feel like one the over is the safe play for this series. Last night pretty much confirmed it. But 2, Vancouver just didn't generate enough chances. It was really that simple. I mean, they got 3 goals, yes, but 1 on the power play, 1 on 4v4 in the second period, and finished with 19 shots on goal. 16 of them even strength. So I don't. You're not going to win doing that. if you get like 25, 30 shots on Skinner, and you're the Canucks, you're probably looking at 4 or 5 goals, and that's going to win you every single game. But you can't let the Oilers skaters just kind of hound you, lock you into the defensive zone. And I know how good Edmonton is. I know they have incredible forwards. So it's a lot easier said than done. But that was like the games they lost to the Predators. Talking about the Canucks, it feels like it was the winnable game. They kind of just let slip. Not to hit the panic button or anything, but because Skinner's not. I don't think Skinner's playing that well, and I don't think he's reliable. I think she loves me. I think she loves the better goalie in this series. Still, I think we've all said that at this point. So if you're Vancouver, it's about either getting more power play time or just finding a way to keep Edmonton on their heels, because that dam will burst very quickly.
Yeah. Well, and even if you just look like McDavid tied that game up like 5 minutes into the third period. Like the Oilers outshot Vancouver 15-2 in the third period. Like if this was regular season, then the Canucks would be lucky to get a point, right? But it's the playoffs and you lost. So here's my thing, boys. And I don't know. I was thinking about this watching the game last night. I was thinking about it this morning as well. I think Vancouver's winning this series. And I think I have a similar-ish take for a game that we're going to do tonight, Dallas and Colorado. But sticking with this series right now, I think Vancouver's winning this series, and this is why. Skinner, terrific regular season, had a terrific stretch of games where he never allowed more than 2 goals. That's done now. Vancouver's found a way to get pucks past him. You said it, Andre. 19 shots on goal, 3 goals last night. And even if they had 5 or 6 more shots in the third period, it might have been a different hockey game, right? Who knows? So I guess there's a couple different ways you can take this. There's a couple different ways you can interpret this. for me, they now have McDavid, Hyman, and Draisaitl on that top line, which they didn't have. And once in a while throughout a game, they'll, do that to get something going off offensively. But that's not normally what they do, right? They try to split up McDavid and Draisaitl. Them all being on the same line, to me, speaks to the fact that their depth players are not contributing, and they don't trust their defensive game enough to rely on what's been working for them. I think that their defense is showing its colors to being a little bit thinner than we thought. Listen, Ekholm, one of the best defensemen in the league for a long time, getting up there in age, but still a very, very good defenseman. Bouchard is showing himself as a potential superstar defenseman. Very good. Nurse has been a non-factor for a lot of this playoffs. And besides that, you got Cece, who's fine. You got Kulak, who's fine. But I think defensively, the Oilers realize that we don't have what it takes. And offensively, you have McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman together, not just to give your team a spark, but because that's the only three people that are actually doing anything, and we might as well put them together. Like last night, you have McDavid, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points, +2, 5 shots. You have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who's a good player. He had 1 assist last night. You have Draisaitl, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points, +2, 4 shots on net. And you have Zach Hyman with 1 helper. Other than that, it's a whole lot of zeros, boys. And that worries me for Edmonton. I know that Connor McDavid is the best player in the world. I know Draisaitl is one of the best players in the world. But to me, when you look at Vancouver, offensively, Pettersson got a goal last night, first goal of the hockey game, and he's been a non-factor this entire postseason, and we're 8 games in, but you still have Besser, Miller, Lindholm, Joshua. You have guys for Vancouver not on that top line who are contributing and finding ways to win. So yes, Vancouver lost last night. Yes, it's a game that they maybe should have won, being up 3-2 going into the third period. But offensively, they got 4 goals. The Oilers did, because they have McDavid and Draisaitl. I don't know, man. If Vancouver can find a way to keep at Skinner, we're looking at a lot of overs, and I think we're looking at Vancouver moving on. I'm actually worried about the Oilers right now.
I'll add to your point, Mark, because I agree with a lot of what you said. I'm also starting to get the vibe that Vancouver can win this series. But I'll add to your points here. I think the next 2 games, there's going to be 2 different goals for these teams. For Vancouver, I simply think they need to take 1 in Edmonton. And this is not just because they're going on the road. I think they just need to tread water and buy some time until they know what's happening with Demko. And then they can then if they're tied 2-2 going into, let's just say, game 5, going back to Vancouver, then they can develop a real plan for the rest of the series and then go all out. Whereas Edmonton, I think they need to win the next 2 games. Put Vancouver in a hole and make them desperate. And also, I agree with your take about putting the stars all on one line. I don't think that's going to work for the rest of the series. That was just kind of a shot out of a cannon thing last night. And maybe they can get away with that for 1 more game, but I don't think that's going to work for a long series. So I feel like Edmonton needs to kind of stack some wins before that I don't want to call it a one-trick pony, but let's just say before Vancouver catches on to that trick. So I feel like extending the series benefits Vancouver a lot more than Edmonton. And also, those guys may just run out of gas if like they decide to play that line for 25 or 30 minutes, for example.
Well, and just to kind of wrap up this thought, this is history. This isn't like McDavid grew up like half an hour from my house. Like, we love McDavid here, man. We love those guys. I want to see them win. But this is history. In the last 3 seasons, I believe it's the last 3 seasons. Someone can fact check me on this. But they have played the Los Angeles Kings 3 times in a row, correct? They are 12-6 against the Los Angeles Kings in the last 3 playoff runs. They are 8-17 against everybody else. And this is what's happened year after year. So to me, this is just history repeating itself. And it's not some like, how could you? The Oilers are blah, blah, blah. It's like, hey, man, this is what we've seen year after year for the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens moving forward.
Yeah, that's how I see it. It's just the same issues with the Oilers popping up where they just can't fill out the rest of that roster, and it bites them in the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. And believe me, I know a thing or two about paying some guys and not having enough money to fill out the rest of your roster. I'm very familiar with that old trick. All right, let's move on. 2 games in the NHL tonight, and I can't wait to talk about this game. I feel like Andre set me up to feel like I'm a Lone Ranger here. No pun intended. That was completely by accident. But we'll see what happens. The New York Rangers are in Carolina, plus 124. Let me make sure these odds are up to date. Plus 124. Minus 148 are the Carolina Hurricanes. The over is 5.5 at minus 105, and the under is minus 115. Plus 1.5 for the Rangers, minus 218. Minus 1.5 for the Hurricanes, plus 180. Andre, let's start with you, man. What do you see from your guys against the Hurricanes in North Carolina tonight?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to the Rangers fans who went to Game 3 because on that OT goal, you just heard a pop from the crowd and it was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So that felt good. But we talked about power play and special teams a lot today with the other series. And I don't know if there's a series where special teams has made a bigger difference than this one. And there might not be for the rest of this postseason, honestly. 3 1-goal games, and the Rangers are, off the top of my head, I want to say either +5 or +7 when it comes to special teams. Talk about power play and penalty kill. Carolina's just getting massacred every time they have the man advantage. Their penalty kill held up actually in Game 3, but then they gave up to Shorty, so they ended up still losing the special teams battle. That's a thing that's been happening in Carolina for years in the postseason. They notoriously do not have a power play coach. So it's going to be curious to see what becomes of that. Just not for this game, but I guess for their future. Their future, I know this series isn't over, but their future seems kind of murky too. Now, all of a sudden, people are calling for Rod Brindamore's head out of nowhere. Mark, I know you love that. The question of, is their goalie or are their goalies good enough? Obviously, Kachetkov's young. He's probably going to be the guy moving forward. And he looks pretty good. So maybe not worried there. Are their top stars good enough? People have been questioning that. I don't know if it seems fair. They've been great in the regular season for years for a reason. They're a very good team. But the special teams drying up in the postseason basically every year, particularly the power play. It's very concerning. And until I see that breakthrough, it's hard to imagine them advancing any further. So I think we all knew I was going to take the Rangers every game of this series and every game of this postseason. I'm obviously going to do it now. I'm going to take the under again because I feel like the Carolina penalty kill has toned down their aggressiveness. They slowed down the Rangers' power play. That will make it harder to score for New York. So that part of the job is done. Carolina's obviously having trouble getting high danger chances and breaking Igor. So their offense has been an issue. You saw it a lot in Game 3 in particular. Really don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game at all. And I think the Rangers are going to win and complete the sweep.
Okay, so you do think they're going to win. Okay, all right. You set me up there. I wasn't sure. So this is my thing. If they lose this series, they got swept last year, all 1-goal games. They are getting swept so far, all 1-goal games. I really, really like Rod Brind'Amour. I've said that on this show many, many times. I think he's the best coach in the league. That's my opinion. I think he's the best coach in the league. If he gets fired or let go or doesn't sign or whatever, there's going to be a massive lineup for people to hire him. I do not like this attitude of last year. We didn't get swept. We were in all those games, 1-goal games. I don't like the attitude so far right now, where after Game 3, it was all, we've been right there. We've been the better team. Okay, that's fine, but you're losing. Like, this attitude of, like, and maybe this is nothing. Maybe this doesn't matter, but if Rod Brind'Amour came out and said, and if all the players followed suit and said, we haven't been good enough, and if we lose this series, it's because we're not good enough. Same thing with the conference finals last year against Florida. If that was said, then I'd be like, you know what? I think this Carolina team can win this game. But all I'm hearing is, we're right there. We've been the better team. We've been this. We've been that. And that's an attitude of a loser to me. And I just don't think that Carolina has what it takes right now to look themselves in the mirror and say, we are not getting the job done. And we have to get it. Like, yeah, if you watch Game 2, Game 3 as well, specifically Game 2, but Game 3 as well, yeah, 5-on-5, there were large stretches where Carolina was the better team. 100%. You still lost. It's like, okay, fine. You're the better team, but you lost. So I don't know. To me, Shesterkin is a big part of this, but we talked about this the last game, guys. Like, Carolina out shooting the Rangers every single game by a pretty wide margin is not that strange. Andre, you follow the Rangers very closely. You know they get outshot a lot because they give up a lot of outside chances, a lot of shots from the sidewall or from the blue line. And the majority of the Rangers scoring chances are very high quality. And so to me, I think the Rangers win this game. I'd take a peek at a Rangers -1.5 alternate line. Although all these games have been 1-score games, I don't know why tonight would be any different. But I just think, I said it, man. The Rangers have been out to for blood all postseason, and I think they finish it tonight. They don't want to keep Carolina hanging around. And the next time the Rangers play at Madison Square Garden, they want it to be Game 1. So I think it is over tonight. I like the Rangers. Once again, you're giving me the best team in the league statistically as plus money, dogs, I'll take it every day of the week. As far as the total goes, under's probably a good move, but I'm staying away from the total. Just give me the Rangers plus 124. John, what about you?
Andre might be mad at this one, and watch I put a hex on the Rangers, but I'm gonna pick them to win tonight. Watch there's a 4-game comeback now.
Love it.
In all seriousness, I can't help it. I guess I'm making this a clean sweep on the Rangers side. First of all, I'm going to look at the odds here. I think it's very telling the Rangers odds actually went down despite this being an elimination game for Carolina. I would have thought this would be up at what it was in the game 3. So I think this is a small sign. Maybe I'm reading too much into this. I take it as a small sign that the sports books are giving up on the Canes. And quite frankly, I think Mark and I are also giving up on the Canes. Like I kind of waved the white flag after game 3. Probably should have after game 2. It's like I think the reason why I waved it after game 3 is because they switched Anderson for the rookie Kochekov, and he didn't play great, but he didn't play bad either. And they still couldn't win. And like you guys said this about the special teams as well. I actually don't think the PK was too bad. They got their act together more as the series went on. Like game 3, the PK didn't allow a goal. Game 2, I know they allowed 2, but it was more the fact they were taking on so many penalties in the first place because they gave the Rangers 7 chances. One was going to go in at some point. I think the power play has been a huge issue in this series. I mean, you can't not score a power play goal and expect to win games.
This is 2 years in a row, John. Same thing.
Yeah. And I do agree. There's some issues circling back around for Carolina. And I don't know how much longer their window is going to be open. It's been like 5 years now. And they don't even have a Stanley Cup final appearance to show for it. And I think this team has the roster to win a cup. I really do. Like 5-on-5, there might not be a better team in the playoffs right now. But it's the other things around it that are killing them. Special teams. I think the goaltending has not been showing up. I don't think they're taking the time maybe necessary to come up with the chances that have really kill the Rangers, so to speak. And also, I think we're seeing more and more of an emergence of Igor. I mean, we all knew he was good already going into this season, but I think this postseason run Igor is on right now there could be a chance of him to establish a real legacy this year with the Rangers specifically, their fans. I mean, he's on a fantastic playoff run career-wise right now, and I don't see a reason why he doesn't keep it up to the end of this series at least. I've not seen anything that makes me think Carolina has hope. Carolina's going to keep this alive. I won't be shocked if Carolina wins this game, but I don't think this goes further than 5. I think my money's on the Rangers to close it out, though. I agree with you guys. They're out for blood. They're giving me Denver Nuggets vibes last year when they had the Lakers on the ropes. They could have let that series get extended if they weren't careful, but they closed every door the Lakers tried to open in that Western Conference Finals last year. And I feel like the reason I'm saying it like that is because I feel like that's what the Rangers have done to the Canes. Every chance the Canes have had to get back in this series, the Rangers have closed the door on it. Game 2, when it's double overtime, Rangers won. Game 3, Carolina decides to switch things up, get their rookie goaltender in there, and not allow a power play goal from the Rangers side. I said a couple episodes ago, the Rangers in years past, in the year prior, they let the Devils get back in it in that same situation. This year, they're not letting that happen. So I see progressive change in a good way for the Rangers to the point where I don't think I have a choice but to pick them tonight at plus 124. And as far as the total, I agree with Mark. I probably wouldn't touch it, but picking a side if I had to, I do get the under vibe just because if I'm picking the Rangers to win, I'm also picking Igor to keep his streak alive. So that seems like a recipe for an under.
The last thing that I'll say, and I think that Andre would agree with me and would love me for this take. One thing about the Rangers that I really, really like, and that really bodes well for them moving forward, is that their best and most productive player has not been Panarin, has not been Kreider, has not been Fox, has not been Zibanejad. All of them have been very productive. All of them have been very good. But when Trocheck is your best, most productive player, and you still have all those guys who can still raise their game to a next level. Don't get me wrong, Panarin's been phenomenal. Zibanejad's been great. But when you have a guy outside of your superstars who is like, hey, boys, join me up here, that's what you want from a Stanley Cup contender. Trocheck, 12 points. The guy is unbelievable. He has the same amount of shots as Panarin does in this playoff so far with 22. You know what I mean? Every champion needs that one guy who you wouldn't. And don't get me wrong, Trocheck's a great player, but you didn't expect him statistically to be going toe-to-toe with Panarin, right? That's no disrespect to Trocheck. That's not what you would expect, right? So I think that bodes really well for them moving forward.
Yeah, love Troch. But he wasn't even our 2C to start the year. It was
Right.
He just hopped up on that line. He was on the power play, just racking up points, but just also making great plays everywhere else on the ice, back checking, taking hits to make the extra pass, winning face-offs. He does it all, and the points are coming, and that's what everyone sees, and why everyone's going to be like, oh, Trocheck's so great now. What a great contract. But he brings so much more to the team. That's why they went after him after agency. That's why he's had a spot all along, with or without the points, because just a good hockey player in every sense.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and I'm really curious to see how this plays out moving forward. All right, oh, by the way, how do you pronounce his name? Hedel? That his name, Hedel? Getting him back, that was not expected. And getting him back, if he can be even close to top form, that's going to be a huge addition moving forward. I know he played in the last game, and he's playing tonight as well. All right, one more game on the ice. The Dallas Stars are in Colorado. Colorado minus 135 at home. Dallas Stars plus 114 on the road. The over is 6.5 at minus 108, and the under is minus 112. Plus 1.5 for the Stars is minus 218. Minus 1.5 for the Avalanche, plus 180. Guys, I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple days. I have been thinking about the shows that we've been doing. I've been thinking about how you guys love the Avalanche and how the Avalanche this, Avalanche that, blah, 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 blah. I was thinking about this. I think that if Dallas wins one game at Ball Arena over the next 2 games, right? Game 3 and 4, they're hey buddy, they're in Denver. We all know how good Colorado is at home. Jeez. We all know how good Colorado is at home. That's not a secret. But we're forgetting that Dallas is one of the best, if not the best, road team in the league this past season. I think rather than the idea of Dallas going up 3-0, then losing, going up 4-0, and then almost losing, I think the Avalanche, my brain's kind of flipped on this. I think the Avalanche are playing with fire. And I think that they're at home now. We all know, like I said, how good they are at home. I expect tonight to be different, and I do expect Colorado to start on time and to play well. But this idea that you can come back from a 3-goal deficit every night, like this is not going to work. And I think if Dallas wins one of these next 2 games at Ball Arena, I think Dallas wins this series. I already predicted Dallas to win this series, but over the last 2 games, my thought process was, oh man, Dallas almost, choked away 2 games. And then I thought about it and I was like, wait a second. The Avalanche have had to come back from 3-0 twice. Like, that's not a recipe for success. So I actually think that the Avalanche are the ones who need a stronger game, stronger start. I thought they actually started pretty well despite being down in the last game. I think because it's game 1 at home, I know it's game 3, but game 1 at home, I do think Colorado finds a way to win tonight. I do like the Avalanche minus 135. I think it's the same thing with the Canucks game last night. If you're going to take a total, take the over or don't take anything. That's my opinion with this series. But I do think that if Dallas finds a way to win one of these 2 games, I think they win this series. And I would actually be worried about Colorado a little bit here moving forward. Andre, what about you, man? What do you see here tonight?
Well, you made 2 great calls talking about that game. So first of all, Dallas did pick up the most points on the road this season. They had the best points percentage. So kudos to you. 2, Dallas's only regular season win against the Avalanche came in Ball Arena on April 7th. 3, you can't play from down 3-0 and constantly come back. No. That's not sustainable. As much as I love it, and I do love it, it's very entertaining, even if it ruins my sleep. Eventually, the fire is going to burn you. So all great calls. That being said, against Winnipeg, in game 3, they scored first. Against Winnipeg in game 4, they scored first. Their regular season finale at home against the Oilers, they jumped out to a 4-0 lead in the first period. Starting slow hasn't seemed to be an issue for this team at home. And we know how the altitude affects people. So I expect that first goal to go for Colorado. They obviously have that next gear that they will hit some point during the third period. I'm expecting at least 4 goals from the Avs. I'm expecting the Avs to win by multiple goals, and I'm definitely expecting over 6.5.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I do think Colorado wins this game tonight, but I'm a little bit concerned. I'm more concerned about them after sleeping on it for a couple nights than I was after their game 2 loss. And I got to mention Wyatt Johnston. I don't have his odds in front of me, but he didn't score last night, and you don't keep this guy down. He's coming back with a goal tonight. I guarantee it. John, what about you? What do you see in this game?
Well, first off, just like with pretty much every Western Conference game this round moving forward, I'm going over 6.5. Yeah. I think no matter how slow these teams start, given the offensive talent on both sides, especially going back to Ball Arena now, they're going to find a way to get 7 goals in this game combined. I don't necessarily agree with Mark all the way on this, not to the point I'm concerned about the Avs, but what I will say is they can't keep coming out flat in the first period. They cannot do that for 6 or 7 games and expect to win a series. That I'll agree with him on. They have to have a stronger start in the first period, or at the very least, not get down by multiple goals after the first period like they've done the last 2 games. So I half agree with him in that they do need to come out stronger out of the gate, in my opinion, moving forward. Because Dallas is not a cakewalk, like they can't afford to keep giving up goals. But I do think the fact that Colorado has the ability to surge and come back makes me trust them a bit more. And I think I'm still not getting over game 1. The fact that Dallas blew that lead and nearly blew game 2 for the record. I feel like while Dallas does have offensive talent, I can't even say this point because they actually have had sparks in the first period. Because I was going to say I think Colorado's better at surging goals, but Dallas hasn't been bad at it this series either. I don't know. I still kind of trust Colorado offensively a little more than Dallas, but not by as much as I originally thought. Going back to Ball Arena, I think this is going to help the Avalanche big time. And I'm sure their head coach is saying the same thing I am right now. They can't afford to come out playing like crap in the first period. And I'm hoping they got that out of their system. Maybe in front of their home crowd. This is what I'm expecting. At least things will change, especially with the altitude change. In that, I feel like that's going to be a massive advantage for the Avalanche that we may not be talking about enough here, especially coming from Dallas of all places. I feel like the Avs 60-minute line is where I would go picking a side here. I feel confident this team is going to win their first home game of the series in regulation. I'm not going to go as far as to say if they lose a home game, they lose the series, but I might say if they lose one of these home games, this probably goes 7. But I still feel like tonight this is the Avs game to lose, even though Dallas came out looking pretty good in game 2. I just feel like the upside with Colorado is a bit more there. So give me the Avs 60-minute line, give me the over.
Ooh, 60-minute line too risky. I absolutely love it. All right, let's move on. Wrap up the show with our best bets brought to you by First Round Collectibles. With our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off regular price and sales priced items. They have a sale ongoing up to 50% off dozens and dozens of cars. With our promo code, get 10% off using the promo code Sports Addict, 10% off regular priced and sales priced items. FirstRoundCollectibles.com. Andre, what is your best bet?
So Filipino might not play today, which sucks because it was going to be him scoring a goal. I love the way he played in Game 3. Great player. He had the dagger in that playoff series a couple of years ago. But instead, I'm going to go with something I've been telling people to bet in my personal life. I think I've only made it my best bet once recently. And that's Mika Zibanejad to pick up an assist. It's minus 110. He has a 13-game point streak. He has at least one assist in every single one of those games. He's on the top power play, and they've been clicking. He gets PK time. We saw they got a shorty. He's on the top line, and they've generated some really good chances. Because shout out to Jack Roslovich, good trade deadline pickup. That's his speed has really helped that unit. But more of the story, bottom line, Mika Zibanejad picking up an assist is minus 110. That's my best bet.
Awesome. John, what about you, man?
I'll keep this short and sweet. I feel I said this before. I'm picking the over in every Western Conference game this round, probably moving forward, or at the very least until Demko comes back. But in this series, I feel like there's no reason to bet against an over 6.5. Colorado Dallas. So give me the over as my best bet there.
Love it. And I already said it. We're going with a couple props on this best bet segment. I don't hate it. I'm going Wyatt Johnston, man. He didn't score last game. He's going to score tonight. Give me Wyatt Johnston, even if Dallas loses.
I think the internet finally caught up to him. But he got his pick in, so kudos to him. Wyatt Johnston, anytime goal scorer for the Stars, is Mark's best bet. That's plus 175. I don't know if he got that part out. Our parlay for the day, Mika Zibanejad picking up an assist at the 7 o'clock slot. That's minus 110. Over 6.5 in the Western Conference matchup. That's minus 108. Wyatt Johnston, anytime goal scorer, plus 175 in that Stars Avs game. The parlay is plus 656. John?
Beautiful. Let's get it.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to Pucks Across Borders, everybody. Hope you have a great Saturday. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Shout out to Total Apex Sports for carrying us, supporting us. John, enjoy your Saturday. All of you, Enjoy your Saturday, and we will see you tomorrow.